All right, this module is about business ownership, types of business organization rather, and market structures. And I'm going to be very brief about types of business organization, but I can't neglect doing a very simple overview at least, however. Basically, businesses are very diverse, and most fall into one of the categories I'm going to talk about here, although there are many others. There are nonprofits and cooperatives and all kinds of things. But most fall into one of these categories. Sole proprietorship. That's a business owned and operated by one person. Proprietor is a business owner. Usually manages the operation directly. I'm going to take my lawnmower and open a lawn mowing service in the summer. That's going to be a sole proprietorship most likely. Now, as businesses grow, sometimes they become partnerships. Two or more partners, can be 100, can be two. They own and operate the business directly. They usually have equal shares in the business. These businesses can grow fairly elaborate. Law firms largely are elaborate forms of partnership in America. Accounting firms, consultants, medical professionals often organize themselves in partnerships. But sometimes a corporation is the way to go. If you've got a more complex business, you can go register your business corporation, and that becomes a legal creation, a sort of legal entity, a person sort of that can acquire resources, own assets, produce and sell products, and so forth. And the corporation is a distinct entity from the individual stockholders who own it. And it offers a number of advantages. I don't want to insult your intelligence. A lot of you probably maybe invest in stock. But a lot of you might wonder, well, I don't really get stocks. What are stocks? So let's just look at this little short 1-minute Investopedia video, which I think does a really good job of explaining that.
A stock is a share of the ownership of a company. As the owner of a stock, the stockholder, you have a claim on the company's assets and earnings. Suppose Steve is starting a company, Pies R Us. He needs $100,000 but doesn't want to borrow from a bank. Instead, Steve invests $10,000 of his own money and finds 9 other investors who are willing to invest $10,000 each. In return, he gives each investor a certificate that represents 10% of his company. Each certificate represents 10% of the company's assets, the building, the pie pans, and the baking materials, and 10% of any future earnings. After 1 year, the company is doing well, and the company's total value increases to $200,000. This means each share of the company is now worth $20,000. $200,000 divided by 10 shares. That's twice the original $10,000. The original investors can sell their stock in the company to other investors for a 100% profit. This is how stocks work. Stocks are bought and sold daily on the major exchanges.
Okay, that's helpful, I think. Why would a business do that? Why would they give up? Why would the person who starts the business give up control of some of the business and ownership to raise lots and lots of money, to go do something on a really big scale? That's the beauty of a corporation. Now, some advantages and disadvantages. So sole proprietorship, you can just go out basically and start one of those. Advantages are you get to keep all the profits, and you can do it however you want to, and it's just easy to do. Disadvantages. You gotta raise the money yourself. You're only one person with one set of resources. You incur all losses, and you have to work all the time while the business is not doing anything, and you have unlimited liability. If I am mowing a lawn and I run over a piece of metal and it flies across the street and lands in the heart of some neighbor, and his family sues me, I could lose everything. I have unlimited liability. A partnership Why would people do that? Well, they can specialize. One partner would be great at marketing. Let's say it's a plumbing firm. One would be great at marketing and getting new clients, but the other is good at actually doing the plumbing. They can specialize. They can access more capital. Two people can raise more money, and they can take a vacation occasionally. Disadvantages. Each partner may be fully liable for the debts of the business. Still limited liability. In reality, these large law firms and medical practice firms, they have ways to limit their liability, but this is a very simple overview of the business organization. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. They must share profits and decision making. It's hard to transfer ownership. Three people are partners, and one wants to retire. He's got to find somebody who wants to buy his partnership, and the two other partners have to agree to that. It's kind of messy. Enter corporations. The big advantage, there are two kinds, C corporation, S corporation. C corporation, most large, publicly traded, well-known corporations are C corporations, and they have limited liability. The company may be liable, but the individual owners are not. If I owned BP stock, I was not personally liable for the billions of dollars in damages that BP had to pay when they had the oil spill in the Gulf. Much greater ability to specialize and divide management and labor tasks, much larger scale and greater specialization. It's easy to raise capital and transfer ownership. If I wanted to sell my part of BP, I just go online to Charles Schwab, my stockbroker, and punch some buttons. Super simple. Disadvantages, well, there are a lot of rules and regulation. If you're going to raise money from the public, there's a lot of potential for fraud there. You've got to file all kinds of stuff. And disturbingly, double taxation. How is there double taxation? Well, the corporation is going to make income, hopefully, and it's going to pay corporate income tax, just like individuals pay income tax. And then part of that income, maybe all of it, it may retain some for investing and growing, but a lot of that income is going to be given out to the individual shareholders in the form of dividends. That's their personal income, and they've got to pay personal income tax on that. So the money is taxed, the profits are taxed twice. Very frustrating to some capitalists. So there's something called the S corporation. And if you've got a fairly small, not necessarily small business, but a small number of owners, maybe it's a family corporation. They say, look, we promise we're not going to hold money back. We're going to distribute all the money to the owners, and they're going to pay personal income tax. So can we get a deal on this double taxation? So the government says, yeah. It gives you the limited liability of a corporation without the double taxation. But there's some caveats. It has to be a fairly small number of owners. This wouldn't work for Apple or GM. And there's citizenship restrictions for the owners. Now that may sound kind of racist, but we want to make sure these owners are Americans and are going to pay taxes in America. We're giving you this deal because we're going to make sure we get the taxes some way. And you get most of the regulatory burden of a C corporation. So those are the basic structures. Important thing, most of, hide this real quick. Yeah. Most businesses in America are sole proprietorships. There's a lot of people out there mowing lawns. Partnerships are about 8%, and corporations are only about 20%. There's not, millions of oil companies out there. However, in terms of how much they produce, their sales, their GDP, corporations account for 84% of sales in America. Partnerships 11%, and sole proprietorships just 5%. Mr. Wendell's lawn mowing service is not going to rack up the same kind of productivity and sales numbers as Apple or GM. And that is an extremely brief look at business structures, business organization.